get an extra. So you might look to maybe delay resilient to level 8 or level 12. But the reason that it's okay to delay it to those higher levels is because in those higher levels is when wisdom saves become deadly and frequent, depending on your DM.
Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Cameron, aka Prince Phantom, and today we're going to be breaking down his best picks for the best his top
Fighter.
picks for the best feat. Yeah, best feats for
Yeah.
fighter.
Go to
Good.
the fighter video. There we go.
Yes. Whew.
So, yeah, fighters get notably a lot more ability score improvements than everybody else, which means they get to take more feats, which is really exciting and really helpful because they need them.
Yes.
Uh, Fighter is heavily dependent on feats. I hear that there are still tables that play without feats. To those tables, I say, don't play a marshal at all. But especially not a fighter. They're literally designed to be taking more feats than everybody else and benefiting from them.
And I can't
So
imagine,
what
like,
you select is important.
just with no feats and all these ability score improvements, they must have stats through the roof, huh?
Yeah, and the bad thing is, you probably don't help them that much because once you
No.
get your main ability score to 20, I don't see you really benefiting from, besides like more HP from Constitution. But
There's, I would imagine with all these choices, yeah, you say you need them, and you do, but I would imagine you can go a lot of different directions as well.
yes, yeah. There's a lot of different things you can do, especially depending on your subclass. We're kind of just talking about general stuff here today,
Yeah,
generally good picks. And the depending on your subclass, some subclasses have their bonus action taken up, some don't. So we'll go into those things when we get into more specific subclass
yeah.
discussion. But
For generic fighter, are you leaning more towards, I guess, enhancing our fighting abilities, of course, but any like trying to get some more out of combat stuff going on?
yeah, generally what you're going to be doing with a fighter is you're going to be taking the combat enhancement feats first.
Mhm.
It's why you see a lot of fighters that start out as a variant human because they really benefit from having a feat at level 1. And then I hope that your table adopts the rule where they get a free feat at level 1 because it's a good rule and more tables should use it. Um, and fighters really benefit from that rule. And because of that, I do recommend that you start off by taking your choice of either crossbow expert, then sharpshooter, or polearm master, then great weapon master, depending on if you're going melee or ranged.
Right.
So, whichever you want your fighter to be, I recommend ranged. Ranged will generally be a better character that does more damage, survives more combats, and is able to just be better. But if you are dedicated to the melee weapon build, I won't stop you, but I will tell you to play it optimally.
All right.
So
Well,
yeah,
I mean that's
these are the feats that you take if you want to do that. You take crossbow expert and polearm master because they give you bonus action attacks. And there are some subclasses that have their bonus action taken up, so you may skip those on those subclasses.
right.
But for the majority of fighters, you will take those, and then you will take the either sharpshooter or great weapon master, depending on melee or ranged, as those provide a -5 to attack, but +10 to damage bonus. That is really, really useful.
Which is nuts, yes. And
Yes,
I forget all the if there are any other details in Great Weapon Master, but I know sharpshooter, just anything but full cover is no cover.
yep, and you get your maximum range, which
Yeah.
you'll probably be using a hand crossbow, so that gives you 100-foot range, which should be pretty much all you need for most
Yeah.
campaigns. So yeah, it's really good, and you take them and you love them, and you then after you hopefully took one at level 1 and took another one at level 4, you get to pick another feat, which you can have a lot more freedom with right at level 6. So that's one of the good things about fighter; they get to diversify early, whereas
Yes.
as other martial characters like barbarians probably are having to wait to level 8, maybe even level 12.
All right. So what are your level 6 recommendations?
There's a lot of ways you can go with this. If you want to go straight into more weapon stuff, all weapon stuff, all the time. You can take Sentinel. That's perfectly fine. It allows you to play the Polearm Master Sentinel combo, which is effective. It's not as overpowered as people think it is, but it is effective. And you can, just invest further into that if you'd like to. There's nothing wrong with that. You can diversify a little bit if you want to have more defense, specifically if you're playing a melee ranged fighter. Heavy Armor Master is actually kind of interesting. And this is one where I could actually see taking, if you're playing a melee fighter, there is an argument to take Heavy Armor Master at level 1, actually.
Yeah, I guess I could see that.
The feat is actually most effective at level 1 because a lot
Yeah,
of monsters aren't doing much more than 3 damage.
right. You're just taking nothing.
Yeah, your survivability, if you take this feat at level 1, skyrockets. You go from being able to take 2 hits to like 10. And granted, it doesn't scale at all, but it is still a damage reduction for most attacks coming at you. Don't worry so much about the non-magical thing. Not many monsters actually use non-magical attacks. I mean, actually use magical attacks, even at
Right.
high tier play. It's going to be useful at all tiers of play, so you don't feel too super bad about taking it at level 1. And then you just take Great Weapon Master at level 4, and I guess Polearm Master at level 6 if you want to. This is a good option for subclasses that have their bonus action taken up. So you wouldn't want Polearm Master anyway.
That's true. Yeah,
So
I want to go on record. Heavy Armor Master is I think the one armor feat that I've always liked.
yeah,
I never had
it
anything
just
bad to say
feels
about that one.
good.
Yeah,
It feels good in play because you're like you take 10 damage. No, I take 7. And you combine this with Barbarian Rage even if you want to with a multi-class.
mm,
Well, actually, no, you can't because then you're wearing heavy armor and you can't rage while you're in heavy armor. Never mind. Take that back.
all right, don't do that.
Okay, well, anyway, it still feels good, and the fighter tends to advertise kind of a tank style of play that it doesn't really deliver on, to be honest with you, um, because they don't have that much more HP than everyone else, and they don't have that much more AC than everybody else. Sometimes they have less. So yeah, this can help you actually fulfill that fantasy if that's something you want.
Yeah, it's fun because that's damage reduction per attack, right?
Yeah, so it does scale
So,
a little bit because as monsters start to make more attacks
right.
every round, that will actually add into the scaling. So if a monster goes from dealing 1 attack that does 10 damage to 2 attacks that do 5 damage each, that's better. So
It's a lot better.
um, if you're not as interested in taking a combat feat at level 6, which I understand probably took 2 in a row, this is a great place to take Magic Initiate or one of the Fey Touched or Shadow Touched
Hmm.
feats. Magic Initiate feels good because you can get Find Familiar. The Eldritch Knight subclass can already get this if they want, but for everybody else, this is a great way to get Familiar, which massively increases a fighter's out of combat utility. I
Yeah,
actually gave this feat to a fighter in my game for free once, just because he was feeling bored with out of combat stuff. I actually gave that player a lot of things to do out of combat because they felt bored. Um, anyway, but Find Familiar helped a lot, and he was able to do scouting stuff with it and have a lot of fun out of combat. So I think it was a great pick for him, even though I gave it to him for free. I think it's worth picking. And even the cantrips you can get: Mage Hand, Minor Illusion, Prestidigitation. Some builds may even want something like Booming Blade. I'll say 90% of builds won't because you can only make 1 attack with it, whereas you're getting extra attack probably at this
mm.
point. But there are some builds, specifically like heavy multi-class builds that are going for a very specific style of play, may want it. So that's a way to get it.
What about a ritual caster?
Ritual Caster is a little bit tougher to swing because it does require 13 wisdom.
All right,
Um,
right, right, right.
but if you can swing it, then I do recommend it.
Mm.
Uh, if you can get that 13 wisdom, which I recommend you try and get to because wisdom saves are important. We'll talk about that a little bit more later.
I'm sure we will.
Uh, I honestly I recommend that most fighters take wisdom as their third most important ability score because you take either strength or dex, then constitution, then wisdom. And you could probably get your wisdom up to about a 13 or so. So you might be able to actually take Ritual Caster. And if in that case, if you can, then yeah, it's a great option. Gives you a extra whole second list of utility that you can do out of combat, and some of that utility can even spill over into combat with things like Phantom Steed. So
Yep.
it's really useful, and it gives you a lot more options and out of combat stuff. It gives you a new thing to look for in treasure loot,
And it's an
in loot
alternative way to
stashes.
get find familiar.
Yeah. So yeah, totally recommend that. And Fate Touch and Shadow Touch, we don't have spell slots to cast these spells with, so we can't benefit from that half of them. But we do get an ability score increase. Some fighter subclasses do care about one of the mental ability scores, so that can be useful depending on your subclass. And Misty Step is great. Fighters don't get, well, there's one fighter that gets teleportation options, the best one, but for the rest of them, they don't. And Shadow Touch can give us invisibility, which dexterity-based fighters can really benefit from. They're already pretty good at
Sure.
stealth, so now you can be really good at stealth. And so after that, you can take something like Silvery Barbs with your first level selection if you want to help the wizard land a spell. That's really helpful and gives you a something to do with your reaction, which you may not have all the time. Or you could just take a spell like Bless and be a Bless battery for the party, which is fine to do. You know,
Absolutely.
especially if like you're a melee fighter and there's a turn where you know you can't get into range of anybody. Cast Bless on your whole party. It's a great use of your turn, much more than just dashing up to somebody.
Yeah.
So Shadow Touch doesn't give us many good first level spell options. Probably your best is Silent Image, which is a good out of combat spell. Don't get me wrong. But Fey Touch has more standout options. So I would rate Fey Touch slightly higher than Shadow Touch. But if you really want invisibility, go for it. I won't stop you.
Yeah, invisibility is a good thing to have.
Yeah. So we can interpose a little bit of magic in with our fighter if we want to. But don't get too happy. We still need to take Resilient to buff up our wisdom saves.
Sure, let's do the responsible thing.
Yeah, so you can probably hold off on doing this until around level 8. Maybe in level 10, fighters get another ability score increase at level 10, I think. Or maybe it's
Yes, according
14.
to let's
I
see.
think I'm right.
Look, I think
You double check
so.
that.
Oh wait, no, not 10.
Is it 14? So
10,
everybody gets one
12.
at 4. Everybody gets one at 4, 8, and 12.
Okay, all right, right. So yeah, 14.
Okay, so 14 they get an extra. So
Yeah.
you might look to maybe delay Resilient to level 8 or level 12. But the reason that it's okay to delay it to those higher levels is because in those higher levels is when wisdom saves become deadly and frequent, depending on your DM. Some DMs never throw anything more interesting than an orc at the party, but a good DM will challenge you in new ways as you level up. And mind controlling you with a succubus and having you action surge on your entire party is a great way of challenging the party. So don't let that happen.
Also, you're getting your second extra attack right around now, so that makes you
Yeah,
a lot more dangerous.
extra deadly.
Yes.
Now you're doing 6 attacks to your party. So yeah, I highly recommend fighters, and this is why it's also great to set your wisdom to a 13 when you start, because this allows you to roll your wisdom over to a 14. So now you are really going from something like a +1 to your wisdom saves to like a +7.
That's
So
nice.
yeah, it's really good. It'll make you a lot more consistent and make you a lot safer in combat. So past that point, we're getting into high levels. There's a lot of interesting stuff you can take. Some of the stuff you might want to take earlier, especially since we get an extra feat at level 6. So you got a bit more flexibility. So, you don't have to take these at higher levels. Depending on your build, you may want them earlier. Skill Expert is an interesting choice,
Indeed.
especially if you're going for a athletics-based build. You're going for strength and you want to do a grapple build. So you can take Skill Expert for athletics and basically guarantee that you succeed every grapple check for the rest of the game.
That is cool. I've never ever had the desire to make a grapple build, but I'm starting to see how it could potentially be fun, useful. I
So,
don't know.
so the fighter in innately doesn't have a lot of great ways to maximize the potential of this. You're most likely looking to synergize with a spellcaster in your party. So if you have a druid slaying down a spike growth, you
Yeah,
can grab somebody and drag them through it face first. It's really fun and uh, very effective as well. Especially because remember, grappling only takes up one of your attacks, and at this point, you've probably got three. So you're not losing a
yeah.
lot by making a grapple. So you can grapple, stab, stab, drag their face through the spikes. It's very good.
I like that. Yes.
So uh, that's a really effective. If you wanted that to be part of your build, you may even consider taking skill expert a little bit early. Another way you can do this if you don't want to take skill expert is to take a single level in rogue. That can give you the expertise in athletics, and you can get it through that way if you'd like. So there's a couple different ways you can achieve that build. Skill expert is one of them. And it does also give you a +1 to an ability score, so that's good too.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, Another interesting one to take is alert. Fighters don't necessarily need alert as much as control casters do,
Mhm.
but there is something to be said for just deleting an enemy off the battlefield before they get a chance to act by action surging and hitting them 6 times over the head with your greatsword.
Yeah, I mean, in the first round of combat, I suppose that counts, but I feel like this one's a little bit weaker. Like you said in the druid video, you want to make this wall of flesh between the enemy and your own team. But
Yeah,
for a fighter, I mean, like, all right, if I go first, great, maybe I'll kill one dude. But if not, I'll kill him eventually, and then the round
yeah.
cycles over.
Yeah, so that's and well, another interesting thing about that is if somebody else comes in your party in the initiative soon after you, they may then be able to finish that enemy off before they get a chance to act. So going early initiative is always good. Just for some classes, it's gooder. Fighter is a class where it's good. Something like a druid is a class where it's really good.
Yeah. Well,
So you know
that's what I'm
that's
thinking though. Like, it's not always good because maybe you want the druid to go first so they can set down their spike growth and you can drag their face through it.
yeah, and so that's something you need to talk with your party with. You
Yeah.
know, if you have a party that is being tactical like that, and I hope you do because it's really fun to play with people like that. Uh, if you have a party that's doing something like that, and you have people in your party that like to cast control spells, especially stuff like AOE's. You know, if you have somebody that
Mm.
wants to cast a big fear cone, get out of their way. You know, don't be a burden. Like that's
Or
why
drag somebody into their way.
yeah, like that is why being a melee character is objectively one of the many reasons. Being a melee character is objectively worse than being a ranged character. You are in the caster's way. Get out of the way. So yeah, but if you, especially, I would say this is better for ranged characters because then you don't have to worry about that necessarily.
Mhm.
But either way, it's lower on the priority list for the fighter than it is for other classes, but it might still be something you want to pick up at higher levels.
Yeah. You got one
Uh,
more pick here.
yeah, this is a me pick. This is me. This is not a power pick. This is something that I like because I like it and I think it's funny. It's telepathic.
Okay.
Now, the whole reason I love this is because nobody expects the guy clad in full plate armor to read their mind.
That's true.
Nobody expects that. Everybody thinks the guy in the pointy hat, he's going to read your mind. Nah, it's the guy that's in the incredibly bulky, covered head to toe in iron. Yeah, he's the one reading your mind.
Cameron's
Now,
playing 4D chess.
yeah. Now, that being said, do you need this? No. But as like a 16th level pick or a 14th level pick or really high level pick, because fighters get a lot of feats, right? You have a little bit of
Yeah,
freedom once you get to this
sure.
point. It's a fun choice because you get Detect Thoughts, which is a spell that is genuinely good at all levels of play and has a lot of out of combat utility that fighters need. They also get Message, which allows them to telepathically communicate with people. It's really cool. I think more people need to play with stuff like this. I would give this for free to a fighter and just say, hey, go wild. write it into your backstory. You are like maybe they're playing a Psy Warrior or something, right?
Yeah.
That seems
Well,
totally
that's
up that
yeah,
subclass's alley.
sure.
So just it's a fun flavor pick that you get to have, and fill this in with whatever your flavor pick is at high level play, because fighters get so many feats that they get to take a luxury option every once in a while.
That's nice. Um, let's see
One
some things you didn't pick. What about for a melee fighter? What about mobile?
Mobile is not really something that most fighters are going to be interested in. It can be good. You won't regret taking it, I'll say that. 10 feet of extra movement speed will feel nice. Um, it's not necessary most of the time, but I will say if you do take it, it does allow you to potentially maybe get an attack in on a combat where you wouldn't have been able to get your attacks
That's what
in
I'm
on
thinking.
turn
Yeah.
one. Now, how often that 10 foot is going to be exactly what matters is a little suspect.
All right. Well,
But
I'm
if
picturing this. All right. Imagine you've got a guy over there and a guy over here. You move over here, cut his head off, and then you got almost enough room to make it to one more guy, but not quite. I think that
yeah,
might come up more than you think.
I could see that happening, yes. The thing that I will say against that is that worth an entire feat selection? For fighter, it's a little bit easier to say yes to that because you do get more.
Right.
So if that is something that you are seeing happen at your table a lot, your DM is actually good at spacing out their monsters a little bit,
Mm.
then sure, go for it. You have the feat selection to spare on it as a fighter. It's not something that I would probably look to, but it may come up and it may be useful depending on your table and your DM.
All right. Well, that about wraps us up, huh?
Yeah, I fighters are the best thing about fighter is that they get more feats than everybody else. And because of that, you get a lot more free flexibility with your character than most marshals can normally afford. Talk about the marshal tax. Marshals have to take, normally 2 feats, right, to start off with. Well, fighters, it doesn't feel quite as bad to have to do that.
You know what? I noticed something else I think you left off of here is tough, which you've included in the past couple of videos.
Yeah, I mean, sure, we could group it in with, generically good feats like lucky if you want.
Oh, I just didn't
It's
know if there was a specific
yeah,
reason you left it off of fighter.
it's fine on fighters, especially if you're intending to take damage by being in melee.
Mm.
Again, just don't intend to take damage and be a ranged character. It's you don't have to take damage. Nobody has to take. No, there's no rule in the game that says that somebody has to take damage.
All
Like,
right, Cameron, this is a fantasy game, and some people's fantasy is charging at people and smashing them in the face with a sword.
yeah,
That's I
your fantasy
cannot.
is wrong, but it's fine if that's what you want to do. I'm gonna get so many enemies over the course of this. It's fine if that's what you want to do. It's fine. It's fine if that's what you want to do. I would say that tough is probably pretty low on your priority list if that's what you want to take. Maybe something you take at level 14
Yeah.
with the extra feat selection you get there. Uh, I just think there's more fun stuff to do. It's as simple as that. Fighter gets to do fun stuff. Most martial classes don't get to do fun stuff. Do fun stuff. Don't take tough. Don't waste your life taking tough. Take telekinetic or
I
telepathic. I mean,
I couldn't fault you for
or
taking
telekinetic.
telekinetic either.
Yeah, sure, that too.
That's my kind of
Maybe.
fun stuff.
Yeah.
Then
So
you get mage hand, some out of combat utility.
there you go. See, fighter's a cool class. It needs more stuff to be even cooler, but it's on its way.
Yeah. All right. Well, that about wraps up our best feats for fighters. Thank you, Cameron, and thank you for joining us. Let us know what you think down in the comments below. Yeah, give Cameron some grief for his comments on melee fighters, and yeah, like,
I
subscribe,
look
and we'll see
forward
you.
to it.
Yeah, we'll see you next time. Goodbye.